Hi, my name's Brian Jambor, and I'm here with Brian Anderson, founder and CEO of Nacelle. And this is Partner Office Hours at Nacelle. We're really excited to have you with us this 13th day of January. This is the first one for 2022, and we've got our captain, Brian Anderson, captain of Nacelle, steering the ship on this one. Really excited to have him on. So for today, we're going to cover several different topics. We'll go through, a little bit of partner office hours tech talks. Why do we do these? We talked about this before. We'll give you some high-level updates on Nacelle and some partner achievements that happened over the course of this last year. And then Brian Anderson's going to give us an update about the state of Nacelle and what partners should really be looking towards in terms of the future with Nacelle and the industry in general. Where's the industry headed in terms of e-commerce? I'll give you some great insight into that. And then we'll have open Q&A. So let's talk about who's here to support you. So we have a lot of executive and senior leaders across Nacelle that are here to support our partners. We have Austin Rutherford, who's our SVP of Customer Success. You often see him on these calls. Spencer Smitherin, who's our Director of Solutions Architecture, who helps partners really with the nuts and bolts of Nacelle and implementing PWAs. We've got Levi, who manages our product in relation to developer tools and documentation. I, of course, am Brian Jammer, who head up our partner ecosystem. And then we have our partner managers, Jacob and Unita. So you have a very large team of very invested individuals here at Nacelle designed to help support you at every level in the partnership. So we're really excited to have all of that support. And if you ever need anything, feel free to reach out to your partner manager, and they can help you navigate the Nacelle organization to make sure that your questions get to the right individual that can support you. So partner office hours, these tech talks, let's again remind people what these are. It's been a couple of weeks since the holidays since we've had one of these. This is a regular interaction between Nacelle and our partner community where we present structured topics, typically by Nacelle technical staff, and it gives our partners the opportunity to really dive in deep in relation to Nacelle and some of these technical topics to tap into that expertise that Nacelle has. We also have a Slack channel for those of you that are aware. Questions that you want to have asked during this presentation can be posted into the general channel of our Slack workspace, our partner Slack workspace, or you can reply as a comment on YouTube and we will see those come in there as well. Again, encourage you to interact during the presentation. If you have questions, we're happy to answer those. And you have a very rare opportunity here to pose those questions to Brian Anderson. So please take full advantage of that. A couple of upcoming topics that we have. So our next topic is going to be all about using Speed Curve to measure PWA performance. We have Lincoln Cross, who's going to give us a wonderful talk around that and really teach you best practices in terms of using Speed Curve to monitor performance. That's going to happen on the 20th here in a week. So look forward to that. We also have a bunch of other topics that we're going to cover this year. You'll see that off to the right side. If you have specific topics that you would like Nacelle to cover, please, please, please reach out to your partner manager and let them know, and we can put a topic on the books. We also have partners that will be presenting this year. If you are a technology organization and you would like to present to Nacelle's ecosystem about a specific topic, again, reach out to your partner manager, let them know, we can get you into the schedule. With that, we have some quick updates and shout outs. So the first, we have a brand new partner portal. Our partner portal is in beta. We are testing it out with a handful of partners. There's a lot of great content in there. There's developer content in there that speaks to how to work with Nacelle specifically as far as connecting it to different backend structures like Shopify or Contentful or Sanity or other CMSs. A lot of great information there around progressive web apps, tons of information around how people should think about headless. And even if you have people on your team for our agency and SI partners and even our technology partners that don't have experience with headless or don't come from the e-commerce industry, there's even content in the portal that will help you ramp those people up and really explain what headless is and best practices. And so again, that's in beta today. If you want to participate in the beta, reach out to your partner manager and they can get you included in that. And that will be GA'd here in a couple of weeks. It'll be ready for everybody. So we're really excited about that. The other thing we recently launched is a brand new partner directory. So we now feature our partners to our customers when customers ask us, hey, who do you have that is really good at building PWAs that can really help me knock this out of the park? Well, we have a directory now that we can send our merchants to, that they can see who has experience building PWAs and who really knows their stuff in relation to whether it be Shopify or Salesforce Commerce Cloud or Magento or some of the backend systems that or commerce systems that our merchants use. So make sure that you work with your partner manager to update your listing there. We also have that similar directory for our technology partners. It's really important if you're a technology partner and you have some sort of documentation around how your technology can be used in a headless environment. If you as a technology company have built out components for progressive web apps, it's going to be really, really important that you put that information into our partner directory, because our merchants are going to look there and see, well, who's making it easy for me to utilize their technology when I go headless. It's going to be very important going into 2022. And so again, work with your partner manager, make sure that you've got that directory listing updated. We also want to announce some awards. So last year was a fantastic year for Nacelle. Brian Anderson's going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a minute, but we want to award 2 partners that really push the limits in terms of building PWAs on top of Nacelle. The first is Scoutside. So we want to congratulate Scoutside as being Nacelle's most valuable agency partner in 2021. Scoutside has done an incredible job learning how to build PWAs on top of Nacelle. They've done their deployments in an extremely timely manner. The code has been wonderful in terms of the way that they've executed it. We've gotten several compliments from our solutions architecture team on just how high quality the builds are that they're doing when they implement headless architecture and build a PWA on top of Nacelle for our joint merchants. So again, Scoutside, congratulations, most valuable agency partner of Nacelle for 2021. We also want to congratulate the Stable. So this is an award that's really for the Zaner team. They recently got acquired by the Stable, and we want to award them the most implementations of any agency partner in Nacelle. They have double digits in terms of number of implementations of PWAs on top of Nacelle, and have just done a really great job with every single one of those implementations. Some of those have been extremely complex, and they've met every challenge with excellence. So we want to, again, congratulate the Stable with most implementations for 2021. We're looking forward to having a great year this year. With that, I'd like to turn some time over to Brian Anderson, who's going to give us an update on the state of Nacelle. Brian, the time is yours.
Cool. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. And I'm really excited about the partner portal and some of these other updates. I think it's going to be great for our partners. So let's flip to the next slide and jump into it. I want to look back at all the things that have happened for us in 2021 here at Nacelle. So in January, we announced our Series A funding. That was an $18 million round, and that was led by Inovia, with participation from our former investors, including Index. And it was really a big lift for us. We were able to invest a lot into the next generation of our product, as well as, start to work closer with our partners to get PWAs under our belt. But that was accelerated even further in August when we announced our Series B round. This round was led by Tiger Global. It was a $50 million round, and it brought our total financing to around $75 million. So, this is capital that we are using to invest in the most strategic areas. And you can see this next bullet point, 44% of our revenue does come from working with our partners. And that's a really big factor. I think most of you know my background, but for those of you that don't, I ran an agency prior to starting Nacelle, and I had always built Nacelle around this go-to-market, as basically close partnerships with our agency partners as well as our tech partners. And when I was running my agency, I always thought having technology that would build a platform or give me the building blocks that I needed to build great things on top of, that was always the best partners, the most valuable partners in the ecosystem. And so a lot of this capital and financing we're pouring into both our product in terms of what we can do to support your builds and make you guys look like superheroes and gals look like superheroes, but also, what are the things we can do from a go-to-market together to execute with you, get you some great clients under your belt, and really, invest in your headless business as a team. And so one of the ways that we've been executing against that is right now the leads are rich at Nacelle. If you're interested in coming in and you're going to invest in building PWAs, and you're really going to make this a part of your business for 2022, in full disclosure, we're giving out 2 times the amount of leads that we get back, and we're actively invested and looking for those partners that are really going to roll up their sleeves and just do a great job for their clients. And this means the world to us. And we always want to bring in great partners into our ecosystem. The Nacelle product is a platform. It's not necessarily a PWA framework or something like this. And so the satisfaction of our merchants, it's only as good as the builds that you all do on the agency side. And last bullet point here, just to look back on 2022, we're approximately at 300% in terms of growth in sales. Our fiscal year is shifted back 1 month, so I guess we can't say 300% yet. But that's right when we're on track for. And that's a big factor for us at Nacelle. Is a big milestone for us to hit. And again, so much of that, 44% of that, is coming from everyone on this call. So thank you to all of you. So looking forward to 2022, this is the year of the PWA. The term headless is used, but I think the real value of headless in today's market is the idea that you can remove yourself from, say, the Liquid framework and actually build something with Vue or React. The app that's generally built with Vue or React is considered a progressive web app. And I think 2022, I think it's really fair to say that this is going to be the year of the PWA. When you're implementing best practices on the front end, things like static generation, things like single page application, you are able to ensure that your clients can really just obliterate their competitors from a conversion rate point of view and from an average order point of view. There's this clear inverse correlation between page load speed and performance of a storefront. And, it's been proven now over and over again here at Nacelle that the best way to execute against this really is a well-built PWA. And so I think 2022 is a race to arms. I think it's going to be awkward to not have that high conversion rate when you compete in the marketplace. And I think not just the technology teams will be focused on this, but the CMOs and the marketing teams that are so focused on, their KPIs like conversion rate, and ensuring that, when they do spend money on ads, it's going to a place that will be profitable for them and drive growth. So as an agency and as a tech partner, what investments should you consider? Of course, I'm biased, and when I ran my agency, by the time we exited, it was the vast majority of our business was quote unquote headless. I guess we didn't call it headless at the time, but it would be called headless now. There have been a few years now that have come, and I believe that this is one of those situations where if you invest early in this, like, the reward will be just a fantastic ROI for your business. To me, again, it's very obvious that the demand for PWAs continues to increase, driven by performance. I think there's a ton of tailwinds behind this, especially as it gets harder to spend ads efficiently. This is a great offset to that, especially as the marketplace gets more and more competitive. There's more D2C brands coming online. How do you differentiate your client's shopping experience from their competitors? This is a wonderful way to do it. And the truth is, not everyone knows how to build PWAs well, which really leads us to our next bullet point. Why do you need Nacelle? I think this question comes up a lot. Why do you need Nacelle if you're building a PWA? I'm going to just take a minute to really explain this, because I think this is really the most important part of our presentation today. The high level picture, the 30,000-foot view, is that over the last 2 decades, technology as a whole has gotten really good at something called compute. We're able to process data, massive amounts of data, really quickly. And for really sort of every year, it gets cheaper and cheaper. If you subscribe to the notion of Moore's law, or even the idea of the singularity. There's this sort of growth curve and trajectory that predicted that compute would get cheaper and continues to get cheaper. And the result is you get some pretty big companies that can leverage that compute in the cloud in a way that's pretty impressive. For example, Snowflake is sort of a direct result of this idea that compute power has just plummeted. Compute power for the cost has just plummeted. So today, our problem is not how fast we can process data in the cloud. Today, our bigger problem is how do we get data from one place to another to ensure that systems can actually leverage that data in a way that's useful and beneficial. So when we talk about things like data flow and data orchestration, what we're actually talking about is a way to solve those data problems. And what Nacelle actually is a data flow and data orchestration platform. And we are orchestrating the data flow from systems on the back end like Shopify and like say Contentful or Sanity. And we're streamlining it. We're putting a protocol or a standard to it. And then we're delivering that. In the case of our headless product, we're delivering that to the front end. And that's what makes it really easy to build PWAs on top of. When I was at my agency, that was the infrastructure that was missing that made our headless builds relatively inconsistent. And so when you think about building your system here or your business, even as an agency, you want to make sure you're getting consistency, and you want to make sure you're getting, satisfaction from your merchants. And unfortunately, in the world of headless, you're working with a distributed system. Whereas before, everything, when you're building on top of Shopify, is sort of in the box. You're within Liquid. It's all server-side reloads. Everything is within the Shopify ecosystem. When you start to pull in a headless content management system, and when you start to pull in, a separated Vue or React front end, you're not in the box anymore. You're actually now dealing with a distributed system. And so the only way to really, have durable data, for example, webhooks go down. If you don't have a system that can handle that, you're really going to get your merchants in trouble. Data reliability and uptime is an issue. API rate limits are an issue. These are all things that the Nacelle platform actually handles for you. And so by building components and PWAs on top of Nacelle, you're going to be able to grow your business in a way that limits your risk for moving into a new market like headless and PWAs, but also ensures, the best ROI for your merchants. And on top of it, we kind of get to our last bullet point, which is at Nacelle, we are heavily invested in a number of ways in education around PWA, but also PWA proficiency. Brian Jambor sort of mentioned Scoutside and Zaner, now the stable, previously. And I think one thing that both of these partners did really well is they got very good at writing Vue, which is a flavor of JavaScript that is just a wonderful way to build PWAs. And so their technical prowess around using a JavaScript framework like that is forward-leaning and forward-thinking is one of the number one things you can also do to invest in your new headless business. But also at Nacelle, we invest a ton in helping you get to that level of proficiency. That includes, webinars like this, but it also includes a lot of our documentation, a lot of our solution architects and our support team, our partnership team. And we even take it a step further. We have a number of starter kits that we write in both React and Vue that your engineers can actually pull down and study and play with and tinker with in order to really get proficient quickly. And all of this is to really ensure your success in 2022 as you grow out your headless PWA business. Okay, so looking forward, what's really on the product roadmap? I'm actually going to start with bullet number 2, which is Warp 2. This is essentially version 2 of Nacelle. It was a massive engineering effort here at our organization. Frankly, something that started at our Series A round, and it turns our whole system into something that I think most companies only get when they're 5, 6, maybe 7 years old. But everything is a microservice system. Everything has a CI/CD pipeline. We do continuous deployment against a very high, high 90s code coverage environment. Everything is a feature flag. And this system, I'll talk a little bit about what the benefits are to the merchant, but for our partners, the rate of innovation at Nacelle is going to significantly increase. And our ability to push out new products will be unmatched in the market, because we're able to spin up squads, and have little interdependencies between squads, in order to push out new features. So extremely exciting. In terms of Warp 2 capabilities, query time is reduced by 50%, which is no small feat, something we're really, really proud of. And reliability, we are distributed in terms of our compute power on the back end. And everything in our system can be sort of replayed. So we use Kafka heavily, and the ability to like replay events that happened when, say, a webhook goes down or something like this ensures that your merchants get strong durability and reliability. And very quickly after our release of Warp 2, we have already our first feature. So really speaking to the velocity that our team can work at. But we have an inventory streaming product that is already in beta. And essentially what this is a system where you sort of statically generate your PWA pages. And then there's an inventory streaming WebSocket connection that plugs right into your front end. And if something goes out of stock, it changes it in real time. Actually, before Shopify can even update, it'll change. So that's something I'm really excited to be demoing with everyone on this call. And it has been well received by the merchants that we already showed it to. So very exciting. This idea that you can get the power and the performance and the speed of, a static cache, like static generation, but then also have real-time inventory streaming for your merchants for things like PDP pages or items that they add to their cart that might fall out of stock. Solves a big problem in the marketplace, and frankly is really impressive. So very happy to be bringing that to market. Another thing that I think everyone will be really interested in is this idea of Salesforce Commerce Cloud. We did ink our official partnership with it. I don't know if that's public yet, but here it is. I guess that's the public announcement if it's not public yet. But we do have an official partnership with Salesforce Commerce Cloud. And so you'll now be able to start to expand your business beyond Shopify and into the Salesforce Commerce Cloud market. And the wonderful thing about this is because Nacelle acts as a layer of abstraction, you could construct and create your builds essentially the same way as you do for Shopify. So it's a very easy way for you to also diversify your platforms as an agency partner. Of course, there will be some differences in the Salesforce Commerce Cloud market and the ecosystem compared to Shopify, but you don't have to learn their proprietary framework, nor do you have to learn, you don't have to have like separate squads, if you will, for Salesforce or for Shopify. If you know Vue or React, then you'll be able to execute against multiple platforms at once using Nacelle as a framework. The last bullet that I'll speak to is consumption-based pricing. So this is something we've been discussing internally for a long time, and we've gone back and forth on. Frankly, I think this idea of consumption-based pricing is a more fair way for us to bill our merchants going forward. It's essentially maps what our costs actually are. So the more you use Nacelle, then the higher the price will be, and the less you use Nacelle, then the lower the price will be. And that's essentially how we pay our cloud providers, which are our biggest costs. So moving more in line with costs and with also the usage that merchants have, and then the demand that merchants put in our system, we decided is a much better way to bill going forward. So look for that to be rolled out along our H1 of 2022. And then I'll hint a little bit at 2023. I don't think Salesforce Commerce Cloud is the only platform that's on our horizon. I think there will be many. And the idea of blending static generation with real-time movement of data is also something that we're very invested in.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brian, for that. Not only recap, but the look forward. Really appreciate that. Lots of great things happening as you hear from Brian Anderson at Nacelle. And yeah, Salesforce Commerce Cloud. That's the announcement I think that a lot of partners have heard rumors of, but it's official now. So that's really exciting, along with all of the innovation that's going to come from Warp 2. With that, we want to turn some time over to you for the questions that you may have. So if you have questions, you can either type those into the general channel of the Partner Slack workspace at Nacelle, or you can type those straight into the comment box of YouTube if you're watching this live stream from YouTube. And we're happy to answer those. with that, it looks like we have a couple of questions that have come in, Brian. The first one is, what trends are you seeing that cause you to believe 2022 will be the year of the PWA?
Okay, right. So I think there's a number of trends. Let's look at the big secular trend that everyone's familiar with, which is the cross. I mean, I think when I started e-commerce, it was maybe a 50-50 split between desktop checkout and mobile checkout, or desktop traffic and mobile traffic at least. But conversion rates were so darn low in mobile, it was hard to invest in. Over time, as phones become more powerful and as mobile native apps become more intriguing, things like TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram, it's become apparent to everyone in the industry that mobile is, just driving traffic. And, with some of these D2C brands that we see, 90% plus is not abnormal. And I think this is a trend that will continue. I don't remember the last time, frankly, I purchased, clothing online that was not on my phone. So I'm sure there's plenty of people that can relate to that too. So the idea of the mobile experience, this idea that you should be working potentially mobile first with your clients, like why show them if the first design that you show them is like a desktop view, that's maybe a question mark now. Debatable, everyone has their own process, but it is interesting. So really ensuring that you're grabbing technology that's satisfying the idea of mobile, it makes a ton of sense. Of course, PWA is right in the middle of that, although it works on the desktop as well. I think where we really see the big performance gains is on mobile. So let's just earmark mobile as a trend for 2022 that'll continue to drive a lot of business out there in the D2C space. I also think that performance is such a big issue. And when I say performance, what I'm really talking about is conversion rate and average order value as core KPIs that merchants are focused on. First of all, I think it's getting more competitive out there. So the movement behind direct to consumer and online sales, it's not stopping. There's new incumbents that pop up in each vertical, I feel like on a daily basis. But now also the traditional retailers have recognized how lucrative direct to consumer can be, and they're also starting to invest. So you're sort of getting, bottom feeders that are entering the market, and then, your big players coming down into the space. And so the need to squeeze out every inch of conversion rate that you possibly can from your web store is going to be more and more important. And it turns out that this inverse correlation between page load speed and conversion rate is, I think, a trend now everyone has recognized. Very rarely now do we get questions that state, well, why is performance so important? Whereas I think 2 years ago, that was a big question mark. It wasn't proven. And so continuing the work that Deloitte wrote, where they kind of published that, hey, turns out milliseconds makes millions. I think that will continue to hold true and be a big driver and a massive trend for the movement in PWA.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Next question. What product investments is Nacelle making to stay ahead of competitors? I think you answered that a little bit with Warp 2 and the speed of innovation, but feel free to elaborate.
I think first and foremost, when we talk about this data orchestration layer, I mean, Nacelle is a layer of abstraction between your backend and front end. And like the analogy I love to use is the CI/CD pipeline, right? I think, yes, you can build a code base and you could push that code base to production without having a CI/CD pipeline. That is true. But it's not best practice at a certain scale. And that scale is really, the mid-market, the merchants that we all talk about every day. These merchants probably should have a CI/CD pipeline. And I think very few at this point would argue that that is best practice. In the same way, you can make a headless project without a data orchestration layer. But is that really the right way or the best way to do it? And so I think continuing to innovate on the data that we can pull in and how quickly we can get that data to be consistent down to the front end will be something that is an evergreen project at Nacelle. And, I'm a really big fan of things like static generation because I love the performance aspect of it. But then how do you offset that with things that could be more dynamic? So inventory streaming, this is a great example of, how we're putting our best foot forward in the field of innovation. we're saying, look, you can have your cake and eat it too. You can get the performance of static page generation. And then for data that really is dynamic, like inventory availability, we will quite literally live stream that to the front end of every client device, every shopper that's shopping on your store. And it will change without reloading automatically. So I think sort of, pushing the boundaries on that front is something that we're going to continue to invest in. And, our roadmap for 2022 is quite ambitious, and something that, frankly, we're so excited to show you kind of what comes next. I don't want to speak too much about it, but, this idea of blending static and dynamic data is a theme that will continue here at Nacelle.
Awesome. I believe this came from one of our agency partners. If we want to increase our ability to build PWAs, where should we start? It sounds like the question, I'll rephrase it a little bit. It sounds like the question is, if they've historically not built PWAs, where would they go, or what places you recommend they go to figure out how to build PWAs for e-commerce?
So I think the biggest thing is understanding that you are writing your front end code base in a very different system. Like if you're in Shopify today, you're writing your code base for the front end in Liquid. And it's a very similar system to say writing HTML with some scripts in like a Ruby on Rails application. What PWAs represent is a standalone JavaScript app, and learning and understanding and building around Vue or React both are very good. My personal preference is Vue, because I think it's easier to read, and frankly, the syntax is quite similar to Liquid, so it's not a big jump. But investing in that, understanding that, maybe thinking about recruiting engineering on the Vue front. But by the way, it's much easier to hire proficient Vue developers than it is to hire proficient React developers. So, side note, like we ramp up Vue a lot faster than we ramp up React here. It has nothing to do with people who write Vue or React. It's just the nature of the ecosystem. So I would say, if you're looking to really invest in this space, think about a Vue developer or two, maybe, and then really familiarizing your project managers with, what's involved with writing a standalone application in Vue or React. Those are the first areas that I would go to start to invest in this. And then, as Brian mentioned earlier in this call, like our partner portal does have a lot of information and education on it. So that's another great place for everyone to get up to speed on how to execute some of these headless PWA builds.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. It looks like those are the questions that we have for today. Do you have any other final thoughts you want to leave our partners with before we close out?
No, I just want to reiterate how grateful I am that, so many people have shown such interest and appreciation for Nacelle. It means the world to us over here at Nacelle, the whole team. I think one thing I always talk about with the engineers is, look, we're writing code and we're deploying code that really has a big impact. And getting feedback from our partner agencies and seeing them use our systems in ways that are really just mind-blowing when you actually look at the end result and shop through some of these stores, is truly like something that we deeply appreciate. So thank you so much to everyone's hard work in 2021. And I'm really excited to work with you, hand in hand in 2022 and beyond.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate that. Thank you, all of you that attended this broadcast. This broadcast is now concluding. If you have any questions from any of the content that was shared, feel free to reach out to your partner manager and they will answer those questions for you or help navigate to the right person that has the answers. Thanks again. Have a great day.